Great. So, welcome everyone, and really pleased that we have two great guests joining us today for the second session of our session musicians series that we're running this month. And I'm going to start with introducing our host for tonight, which is Colette Williams. She's a session drummer and multi-instrumentalist. Worked with great artists like Gabrielle Aplin, Refused, and most recently with indie sensations The Blossoms. Yes, hello. Great. And our special guest for tonight is Ben Thompson. Ben is a professional drummer with over 10 years of work experience working with acts like Tutor Cinema Club, Phoenix, or The Night Game, and many more. He headlined Glastonbury, Coachella, Lollapalooza, and he played probably nearly every late night TV show that you could think of. So,
not all of them, not the dodgy ones, you know.
Yeah. Great. You guys have the chance to ask some questions throughout the session. You will see a Q&A box at the bottom. We would ask you to put the questions into that instead of the chat. That makes it a bit easier for us to answer them. And yeah, I think that's it from me for now. And
see you later.
yeah, bye bye. Enjoy the session.
Thanks for the introduction, loved it.
Thank you. Hello to everyone that's watching. So Ben, I'm guessing we should start with the really pressing question that I think everyone's going to be wanting to ask, which is, have you been baking any banana bread during lockdown?
Baking any banana bread? No, but I do have a bunch of bananas at my house that are starting to go off, and I hear that's the trick to good banana bread is.
That's what gets you into it. That's how it starts.
So I'm a little bit behind on the craze, but I might give it a go, and I'll send some pics.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like, everyone has the best of intentions. You have some really good bananas there, and you let them go off, and then like 3 months later, they're still there, and you haven't.
They're still there.
Bread.
No. But the answer is I've eaten a lot of banana bread, but I haven't made any.
So joking aside, obviously it's really strange times at the minute, you know, for everyone across the board in the music industry. So what have you kind of been doing to sort of keep yourself sane through this time?
I mean, I've been fortunate that I've got side businesses. I own a cocktail bar and a nightclub with some friends, and we've obviously also had very difficult times, but you know, we're powering through. So but I've also been trying to practice in the club. We've one of the venues is slightly bigger, which is like a music venue and a nightclub. So especially the first lockdown, the first thing I did was get my drums down here, played along to a load of music, which was really great fun. So, but yeah, other than that, it's been quite difficult because a lot of the studios in my area anyway have been closed. And but hey, we're trying our best. Yeah,
I guess that's hard because you're hit with both industries there, like hospitality and sort of the music industry as well. It's like a double bubble for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a double shot, but it's all good. We're powering through. We're staying afloat. Things are looking a little bit more positive now for next year for both industries, I think. So everyone's just got to stay positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, like, obviously you've been doing a little bit of kind of playing, a bit of rehearsing and stuff in the free time. So like, I think a lot of people out there have kind of had these peaks and troughs at the moment where you kind of get these flurries of creativity and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go play and, you know, practice instruments and all that stuff. And then other days it's just kind of like, you know, it's just gone. So how do you kind of ride those peaks and troughs?
Oh, I mean, I think us as creative people, musicians, I think we're all naturally like that sort of anyway, aren't we? Really, but I guess if you're having a down day, you've just got to stay positive. I often try and just stick on some music really loud and annoy the people that I'm with, usually like my girlfriend or my family, by drumming on tables and tapping away. And quite frankly, it's just being annoying in that respect. But again, I think as a drummer in particular, it's really difficult to sort of play during the lockdown period because it's you can't. I don't live anywhere where I can play at home, so I often have to go to a studio and stuff like that. So it has been quite difficult. But I do have, you know, I've got some decent Roland equipment and stuff like that. That's makes it a little bit easier for me. And I occasionally try and pick up a guitar, keep the creative stuff flowing, you know.
Nice.
But overall, me, like I'm sure a lot of the people on this chat are, really, really missing live music actually at the moment. It's very, very strange. I'm used to doing sort of 200-300 shows a year, all around the world, and at the moment we haven't really moved for 8 months, apart from one show that we did this year, which was the Virgin that festival that they put on in Newcastle, which was actually really great. Actually, I don't know if anybody saw it. Did you see it?
I didn't personally. I saw some of the other ones. That there was kind of a run of them, weren't there, before they sort of stopped them.
Yeah, it was quite cool though. But they basically had everybody in almost little pens. They had their own cages that they all had to sit in. But it was great because everyone could stand up and still see, still sort of sing along and sort of enjoy it. So I thought it was a really cool move for the promoter to have done that, and sort of like a little sprinkle of like that buzz that you get from playing a live show again. So that was nice. So hopefully we see some more of that in the new year.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because like, you know, there is so little going on at the moment that was just like a little spark of magic for everyone. And all, you know, it was for a short time, I guess, but there was quite a run of shows. So how did you kind of like, because obviously a lot of musicians, you kind of vibe off that audience feel, and you know, you're getting that back and forward. So how does it feel when you don't really have that at like maximum capacity and they're kind of like in their pen?
It was quite strange. I'm not going to lie. My eyesight's not particularly great, so it's it's often a little bit blurred anyway. But like you said, in terms of like the actual in terms of the actual feeling of the gig, you know, I just I got our monitor engineer just to whack the ambient mics in my ears right up, so I could hear sort of like the first sort of like, you know, 5 rows of pens, should we say, and they're all quite noisy and energetic. So it was great. It was a really good experience, and I'm glad to have sort of had the opportunity to be a part of that.
Yeah, I guess it's enough to kind of fill the tank for like a couple of months, you know, just
exactly.
The next thing kind of comes along. But, yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that.
So what kind of like initially got you into music? Can you kind of remember sort of when it was that you were like, yeah, this is what I want to do for a living?
My dad's side of the family are actually very musical. So I sort of like grew up. My parents both obviously like loved music and loved live music, and my dad's a guitarist as well. He did that professionally for quite a long time, and I just grew up with it really. I initially started playing the guitar and thought, this is not for me. Again, I was sort of like from a really young age, I was always just banging on desks and annoying the teachers, and I'd always have them complaining on parents' evenings that I just don't stop tapping on desks all day. So I thought maybe I should give drums a go, and I sort of I was lucky enough to be able to like sort of jam with my friends and my dad, and I sort of realised quite quickly that that's what I wanted to do. Ended up getting my parents bought me like a summer rock school course that they did in Brighton in one of the colleges, and I went to that, and that was when I really, because they basically put you together in bands, but I was only sort of 14, 15 at the time, and get you to sort of like play a gig at the end of the week to all the parents and stuff like that, and that was when I just, that sort of buzz that you get from playing in front of a crowd, no matter whether it's sort of 10 people or 100,000 people, that you just can't explain unless you've experienced it. So and that was the moment I think that I really knew I want to do this forever, really. So
awesome. And when you were like at school and stuff, like did you have access to kind of drum kits and things back then, or was it kind of the standard school setup where 15 kids shared one keyboard?
Oh yeah, no, it was one of those classic like beaten up old performance percussion drum kits that wasn't standing up, and the drum heads looked like they'd been beaten by several people for many years because they had. But yeah, no, it was good. I soon sort of saved up, and my parents sort of helped me as well get some decent equipment behind me, and were very supportive in that fact, which I was very lucky to have. So yeah, that was it.
I guess that helps as well, as you said, because you've got like musical family members. You're always going to have stuff around that you can kind of pick up and have a go at, and it's not always kind of the case of like, Mum, Dad, can I have a £400 drum kit, please? Because parents are always like, they're not that forthcoming when you ask for something that expensive. And as a kid, it's kind of the way that things kind of get picked up and then dropped, don't they? 1 week it's football, 1 week it's drums, so it takes a while
exactly.
to get their trust to invest in something like that.
Yeah, I think I like I said, I had a like a sort of £50 drum kit at the start. And I remember when I said to my parents, I was like, I want to be a professional drummer, and I need, I really could do with some slightly better equipment in order to be able to so I can get into a band and get myself going. And I remember my dad saying to me, when you call me upstairs to your bedroom and you play the Rosanna Shuffle, I will buy you a new drum kit. And for the drummers in the house, know that that's quite a notoriously difficult a drum pattern to nail. And I remember just going down 6 hours later after, just going over and over and over it, calling my dad up and playing it, and just his face going, "Oh, for God's sake!" And off we went. And that's how I got my first proper drum kit in order to get me starting to get some professional work. So that was quite cool.
That's so strange, because literally as you started telling that story, someone typed a question saying, "Can you tell us the Rosanna story?" How eerie is that?
That's really strange.
Really, really eerie. Well, like they've just read your mind.
Oh, well, there you go. Then that's the Rosanna story. And that's how I got my first professional drum kit, and that led me to have the equipment to be able to start applying and getting myself out there. I've never really been the sort of drummer and musician that enjoys sitting playing on my own, in the sense of the drums. And it's that's I always loved playing with other people, and if I was having to play it on my own, I'd always be playing along to music. I'd never been the drummer that sits there and reads like music books and particularly studies the overly technical side of drumming. I've always just much more been about playing the bloody drums, making people dance, and what I feel like the drums do to a live show. Or that's always been my vibe as a musician.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think like when I was starting out, I had a drum kit in the garage, and all the neighbours used to go mental at me, and I just used to stick my headphones on and belong to like Blink 182 or something that I couldn't keep.
Exactly.
Just make as much racket as I could and just have loads of fun, because that's what it's about, really, isn't it?
Exactly that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys have a lot of technical side of drums and stuff like that, but for me in my career, it's never overly been something that I've needed. Obviously, there's the side, like the electronic side of things, which is a lot more really important nowadays. I don't want to go off subject on that respect, but obviously when I started playing drums when I was 15 professionally, like electronics weren't really a thing and they weren't needed. Whereas now I feel as if it's a major part of being a musician live, like a drummer live. Now you've got to be able to incorporate into your playing. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I guess you've got to be, it's not enough just to be an instrumentalist. You've got to be a producer. You've got to be a songwriter. You've got to have like business acumen about you. You've got to be like really savvy in the music industry. You've kind of got to be like everything rolled into one.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. And that's a super important point. I know that we've obviously got some questions. I don't want to go too off subject, but we can chat about that in a bit. No problem.
Okay, so we've got some questions on here. So. One says, I saw you playing with the Night Game 2 years ago. That was an amazing show. How did you get involved with that project?
I actually got involved with Martin, who's the singer of the Night Game. For anyone that doesn't know who the Night Game are, go check them out because they are really, really great. I don't know if you remember an old band called Boys Like Girls. Do you remember that sort of emo pop band from America? He was the singer of that, and then went on to become a very successful producer and songwriter. But I actually, going on to another topic, which I think we should definitely talk about tonight, is networking, especially in a place like a music college. It's such an important point. But I actually got the gig for the Night Game through Phoenix's management. They'd obviously seen me play with Phoenix, and I built a relationship with them. And it was at a time when Tudor took a year off because it'd been an absolutely crazy 7-8 years, and Martin was just building a band, and I was taking over from a drummer called Dave Ehrlich. Don't know if you guys know. I'm sure some of you guys know his name. It was so quite big boots to fill. When they rang me up to say like, are you up for it? I was like, yeah, kind of. Are you sure? But and that was literally it. Next minute, I was literally on a plane to LA, and I had breakfast with Martin. We had a chat. He was like, yeah, no, this is wicked. Like, let's go to the studio tomorrow. And that was it, really. we were rehearsing, and then I toured with them for about literally pretty much a year. I think the tour finished 2 days before the two-door rehearsals started again. So it was one of those moments in the music industry where the diaries went perfectly together, which is very rare.
It never happens, is it?
It never happens, but that like, I started the night game sort of like 2 or 3 weeks after two-door finished, and then finished a couple of days before the rehearsal started. So it was actually pretty beautiful.
That's epic. And so like you kind of mentioned about sort of juggling the diary and stuff then. So as a musician in this kind of climate, how do you make sure that you've always kind of got enough work? Because obviously there's going to be like down periods when you're not on tour and you might be writing or something. So how do you make sure that you kind of maintain like a good sort of steady income throughout it all?
You know, sure. I mean, I've been fortunate enough that two-door, since when I actually went and auditioned for two-door, it was I only got asked to do a 4-week UK tour, which was like an NME club show run, and then it literally turned into like I haven't stopped really. So I've actually been very fortunate that that two-door have been so busy for over 11 years now, and there's been very, very little downtime, and the few downtimes that I had have been literally sort of, you know, I've reached out to a few of the management companies that I've obviously built relationships with throughout the years, and said, you know, two-door have got 6 months off. You know, I'm not really somebody that enjoys sitting off and having time off. Never really have been. Which, like, so the lockdown sort of driving me a bit crazy in that respect for not playing shows, but. So yeah, and it's always worked out quite well that I've managed to build a good enough reputation for myself that they can sort of just just vouch for me and say, yeah, these guys really need a drummer, and we think you'd be perfectly suited. And then next minute I'm sort of having a rehearsal with them. So it's worked out quite well. But I guess it's probably a good time to sort of chat about networking, because I think it sort of links to that in terms of, like you said, when there's downtimes. I think it's one of the biggest and most important sort of tips I can give to young sort of upcoming musicians is how important it is to network with other musicians, and, like you say, producers and musical directors and stuff like that, because there's a lot of people doing it now, and I think it's with sort of social media as well. It's actually it's a good time to be able to get yourself work. I think it's easier to get work than it is now than it was 10 years ago, because it's very easy to sort of build a profile for yourself online with videos and Instagram and stuff like that. And you can reach out to all these MDs and network with them online as well as you can. Like sort of 10 years ago, there wasn't the amount of sort of music colleges that there is now, like amazing ones like you guys. And it's just such an incredible place, because often the people that, you know, your tutors and stuff like that are people that are actively working in the music industry. And essentially they are the people that are going to, be the stepping stone to the next step in your career, essentially. So it's so important to network and understand that. I feel that if you've chosen to go to a music college, that your career sort of doesn't start when you finish that college. It starts when the day that you step into that college. And I think that's a common mistake that people make. I think people sort of like ride the wave of like a uni and sort of think, when I get out, I'll get a job like in the industry. But I think, you know, you should be sort of thinking in the mindset that as soon as you start in the college, that's when your career starts. Because hello, am I still here?
Yeah, all good.
Sorry, I thought my internet went. Sorry about that. And yeah, you've just got to bear that in mind, that when it comes to, you know, do you guys do sort of like, do you have to learn tracks together as in the different instruments and play them together, like different tracks and stuff? Is that something that you guys offer?
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of sort of live performance workshops, that kind of thing, working together.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so I think, you know, times like that, I think it's so important to sort of try and make sure that, you know, you put the time in to learn the tracks beforehand, even if it's not sort of like your genre of music. It's not really about that. That's, you know, obviously the college is the place to make the mistakes in front of everyone and sort of help each other. But I think it's if you're the guy that turns up that hasn't bothered to listen to the track and doesn't really care and stuff like that, you've got to remember that, you know, like the people in the college and the tutors and stuff like that are the eyes and the ears for, like, introducing you to the next sort of part of your career. And they're not going to recommend the guy that's always late and doesn't learn the songs. I know it sounds boring, and obviously you've got to have fun at university and stuff like that as well. But I think it's really important to try and be focused when you're in a college like that. That it really does start from the day that you walk in.
Yeah, I can. I think that if you put a foot wrong, then that'll kind of spread faster around the industry than something that you've done right. And it's quite sad, but that's the way it happens. You can sort of blacklist yourself for life if you do something wrong or don't prepare enough.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I mean the music industry, it's actually frighteningly small, isn't it? Like when you're doing the festival circuits every year, like you see the same people. It's always the same people every year, and they all know each other by name. And like when you're backstage, like everyone's like, "Oh, you're right. How you doing?" It's like, yeah. And yeah, like you say, reputation again. It's sort of similar to networking. It's very important to build a good reputation for yourself. I always find that young musicians worry so much about sort of like being the most technically gifted, like drummer or guitarist or something like that, and they've got to be able to do double kick pedals at this sort of speed and like what Thomas Lang can do. And although I fully appreciate that sort of playing, that's not the sort of playing that gets you the work really. People like again, sort of like another bit of advice that I would sort of give young musicians is not young, but I mean in terms of their career young, is that basically. Is my internet going really funny? Sorry, because it keeps cutting in and out for me. And I can't tell.
We're good at this end. It's nice and clear.
Okay. This must be free. Keeps freezing my end. Sorry about that.
You kind of touched upon obviously networking and sort of becoming a session musician, but someone's kind of asked in the chat, how do you sort of start off? So if you're relatively unknown and you're trying to branch out into that industry, what are some of the sort of starting steps that you can take to get noticed or start making those connections?
Is this somebody sort of like that would be in a college? Yeah, is that what they mean?
Yeah. So they're kind of asking how, what do you do to get hired sort of for your first gig, I guess.
Okay, cool. So what I sort of noticed, and I sort of realised quite early on in the industry, is that as musicians, going on the topic of focusing on being the best player ever, is that you spend such a little amount of time on the stage when you're touring. And I think it's a really important point that so many musicians, like session musicians, forget is that you don't need to be the most technically gifted drummer or musician to get work. You've got to remember, like I said, that it's very much like touring the world is very much like a sort of Big Brother like world. Like you're in dressing rooms. I mean, obviously not at the moment. But you're in tiny little dressing rooms with lots of people. You're in the back of vans. You're on tour buses. You're in airports. So essentially, you've got to remember that you as a person and your personality and sort of like how you put yourself across, I think, is just as important as your ability to be able to play. And essentially, you can be the best musician in the world, but if you're an arsehole, you're not going to get a job, basically. If you're a nice person, good to get along with, and you're fun, and you're reliable and sort of consistent, you're going to get the work. And I think people will notice that really early on. There's nothing worse than the cocky arsehole who thinks they know it all and can play, twiddle their sticks faster than you. That's not what it's about. It's very much about being able to get on with people, work with people, and as well as sort of play. So that would be my massive bit of advice starting out, is remembering that fact. You don't have to be the best musician. If there's always going to be a better drummer than you. There's lots of better drummers than me. It's not about that. As long as you sort of you learn the music well that you're wanting to aspire to play, and you put yourself across properly, then I think that you will be successful. And take in the advice that I said sort of about the networking, and just try and get out and play. People aren't going to see you if you're just playing on your own. So whether it be a video of yourself that you're putting online, etc., it's I think it's really important to get out there. And obviously, we're living in very strange times at the moment with the COVID stuff. But usually, there's loads of jam nights you can go to, especially if, like a college like yourselves, you're based in London. Like London, it's almost like the heart of the music industry in the UK. So many jam nights and stuff going on. Just go down and just play with people. There's going to be people better than you. There's going to be people not as good as you. That's not what it's about. It's about getting down and sort of networking, meeting these people, talking to them, and building yourself up, basically.
That's good advice. I think staying humble gets you, pretty far in this industry as well.
Yeah, very much so.
If you're a person, then you're going to get the gig time after time, really.
Exactly that.
You mentioned earlier that one of the bands you've been in, you got that off the back of auditioning for it. So that kind of process, like, how do you prepare, and what should you prepare for going into an audition in the music industry?
I mean, if I'm going way back to the tutor one, they sent me three tracks to learn, and I literally played them over and over and over until I could play them asleep, basically. I think again, an audition is so much about like they're auditioning you as a person as much as you're playing, because I think every single like musician I've ever spoken to that's going to an audition is focusing so much on just what they're playing and not thinking about the fact that you've got to get yourself across as who you are as a person, and if they can get on with you. So when I did the tutor audition, I sort of tried to do that, made sure that I was on time, so that it wouldn't be a worry. That nothing worse than rocking up late to an audition. It's always better to be stood outside for an hour before than it is to be late. When you're professionally touring, there's nothing worse than the person that's late to lobby call in the morning, waits 5 o'clock in the morning when you're about to get on a 12-hour flight, and you're sat in the lobby waiting for this one person that's always bloody late. It's the worst thing in the world. Don't be that person. So yeah, I guess it's just I can't put that sort of fact across more about it's you. It's as much as you as a person as it is what you're playing. So put in the time and effort to learn the songs, and if you're the right fit, you'll get it. And another point, I know that it's a bit shit to talk about, but it's try and make yourself look presentable again. If you turn up with a t-shirt that looks like you've been had on for 3 days and eaten a curry and you spilt your tikka masala down your top, it doesn't look very good. Unless
you're auditioning for a grunge band or something, then it's
exactly, unless you're doing that. But obviously, a lot of the gigs out there at the moment, they're pop bands and stuff like that, and pop like presentation is important. So trying to make a bit of an effort in that respect, I think, is important as well. Making sure you're not rocking up smelling of Jägermeister from the night before. Important fact. Sounds boring, but everyone's got to remember that at the end of the day, the music business, it is a business, and it's got to be a combo of being fun and professional. I think as a session musician, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a really good point about your image as well, because whilst we would like to hope, and it usually is about your musical skills, there are going to be other elements to that. Does your face fit? Does your character fit? Because if the band feel like they can't work with you, or the artist that you're auditioning for doesn't kind of gel with you, then obviously you're not going to make the cut. And the other thing you said about like always be early, like I absolutely second that. I went for an audition once, and I booked the rehearsal room next door just to go and get an extra bit of practice in an hour before, and the person before me didn't actually turn up to their audition, so I actually got a call to come in early, and I was like, wicked, I'm next door.
I'm next door, see in a sec. Yeah.
And honestly, they were so grateful, and I was just so chuffed that I'd made that decision. So it really is worth going the extra mile, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is, and it's so important, and it's just the right attitude to have in an industry that's incredibly competitive, in my opinion. So
yeah, I agree. So tell us a little bit about your very first tour. Do you remember the first time that you kind of knew that you were going on tour and had to like get on a tour bus and sort of experience it all?
Yeah, no, I do. Like I said, the first tour I ever did was that tour with Tudor around the UK. And yeah, no, it was really bizarre. Like, going from like I'd sort of played with function bands for a couple of years to sort of like to keep the money coming in, and trying to practice songs and stuff like that, to then being like I'm in a position where like people are setting my drum kit up for me, and I'm like, don't touch my drum kit, please. I said, no, I'll do it. It's all right. It's quite a strange transition, and like working with tour managers and stuff like that. And I had quite a how I actually started playing with Phoenix, the French indie band, was quite a funny story, because straight from that UK tour, we went to we went to support Phoenix in Europe for a couple of weeks, and so Tudor at the time, it was a headline tour that we were doing, so we were playing sort of like between like 750 and sort of like 2,000 or 3,000 capacity rooms, which were absolutely massive for us at the time. We're sort of I was 17 years old, had never played rooms like that before, and then we went to then support Phoenix, and they were obviously in Europe. They were doing arenas, so suddenly we're supporting Phoenix and we're playing to 15,000, 25,000 people a night, and it was absolutely terrifying. I just remember that the difference of the size of the rooms was crazy. And then we went on to straight from that tour to support them in America, and they were even bigger there. So it was sort of consistently minimum 20,000 capacity rooms every night. And I remember after the first show, the drummer's Thomas, his wife went into labour early, and after the first show, he came into the dressing room. He was like, "So, can you do the gig tomorrow?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like for me, I've got to fly back home. So, can you do the rest of the tour? And I thought they were joking, but they weren't joking. So they'd obviously seen me play for a couple of weeks in around Europe, and sort of we got to know each other and sort of appreciate that. Okay, Ben's capable of doing this gig. And yeah, that was the most terrifying 24 hours of my life, having to learn a nearly 2-hour Phoenix set. And then next minute, I'd gone from not only playing every night with the support band, I was then had a 20-minute break and then had to do a 2-hour show with Phoenix. And I did that for a couple of months, and that I shredded some pounds. That's safe to say that. I went from a slightly chubby teenager to I didn't have much left.
But you were like ripped after all that.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was pretty full on. But again, it just goes to show you never know who's watching you and when, and it's so important to sort, because that must have been a brave thing for them to think, like this 17-year-old kid is capable to sort of like fill Thomas's shoes, and anyone that's sort of familiar with Phoenix know that he's a very, 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 very difficult drummer's shoes to fill. So it was very intimidating at the time, but I think it definitely made me the sort of player and person I am today, having to sort of step up and do that.
That's crazy. God, I think I would just faint or just pass out from the sheer terror of it all.
I do remember the first night that we played. Like we were playing in Washington DC in the DC like arena, and it was so big. I was literally like my legs were just jelly walking up onto the drum riser, and their particular stage design, it was like a 10-foot drum riser. So there was no hiding if there was any mistakes, that's for sure.
That's crazy. So can you just talk us through what a typical day on tour would look like for you, from kind of waking up to finishing at night?
I absolutely, I don't know about you, but I cannot sleep on tour buses. I like, some people love getting into their little coffin and going to sleep, but I don't. When it's moving, I cannot sleep. I don't. So I tend to wake up a little bit later. And then I'd sort of roll out, sort of go into the venue, and by that time, fortunately, everything is set up for us. So I'd usually go and get some breakfast, and then we'd sound check, and then it's sort of like, you have like 4 or 5 hours off, have some dinner, play the show, and then back on the bus and off you go. Like the two-door schedules are often very, very intense. So it's sort of like 6 shows a week. Massive drives in between, or flights and stuff like that. So there's, you've just got to sort of take it easy, really, because it's full on your body when you're on those sort of tours, and it's very hard to explain that until you're doing it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I completely agree. There's only 2 camps, isn't there? You either love the tour bus and it kind of rocks you to sleep gently and it's like the ocean, or you hate it and you're just kind of there awake all night until you reach the next place. Yeah,
I cannot. I'm one of the ones that cannot sleep, so I'm always up really late watching stupid things on Netflix.
I think one of the things that you learn really quickly as well when you start touring is like the tour bus etiquette. It's the kind of thing that no one prepares you for, and you have to kind of make the mistakes as you go along, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. This is a classic don't go for a poo on the bus is the main one, isn't it? Right? Everybody kicks off about that, and then there's always one person that does it. But it is strange. But like I said about the whole, how important it is that to remember that it's about you as well as your your performing ability is like living in a tour bus is strange. I mean, Tudor are sort of now at the level that we're fortunate that we have 2 or 3 tour buses when we go on tour. So it's just like we have a band bus, so it will only be 5 of us on it plus a tour manager. But you know, there's some situation where you can have up to 18 people on a bus, like, you know, in bunk beds. There's one toilet, there's one tiny sort of like kitchen, and you know, sometimes you're doing sort of 16, 18-hour drives across America, and that's sort of like, you know, several days in a row. So it's it is very sort of, it's a strange way of living, and people don't really, it's sort of like the part of touring, I guess, people don't see. And yeah, you very much, you know, you can't be an arsehole in that situation, because it doesn't work. So like you're essentially on tour with one big family basically, and you've all sort of, you know, you get along and you help each other out, and everybody has ups and downs, and you sort of pull each other through it.
Yeah, there's always drama. There's always like someone falls out with someone, and you know, someone else is bitching about one of the crew, and always happens.
Oh yeah. That's just life though, isn't it? That is life.
Exactly. It just kind of mirrors it, but on a tour bus. It's the only difference.
Yeah.
So, when you're kind of traveling around the world, do you ever kind of get the chance to sort of go and explore the city that you're in, like between kind of waking up in a new city and playing the show at night? Do you get to do much of that?
Yeah, no, I've always been very much the kind of guy that's, you know, with the time off that we have, if we do have a day off, I'm always up and out and sort of like exploring and wanting to go and see stuff. So yeah, I mean, at the beginning it was a lot harder, because obviously we'd be loading our own stuff in, we'd be setting our stuff up, and we'd be, you know, sound checks and everything like that. They all take a lot longer when you're not traveling with your own equipment and stuff like that. But you know, but now we're sort of at a level where it is nice, and we do have a lot more time to sort of explore wherever we are. So fortunate that the answer to that is yes, as now. So after, you know, the sort of like the hard work and everything of the van days, we're now in the days where we do have time to go and have a look around. Yeah, so it's nice.
And I guess there's quite a difference, you know, as you're sort of starting out and you're kind of DIY and everything, and as you said, you're kind of driving yourself to shows. Do you have any tips for sort of anyone watching that's, you know, maybe in the same position trying to launch their career, to kind of make sure that they get a lot of support, or, you know, getting offers for tours? Like, is there anything that you would kind of say sort of helps you get to that position?
Again, I just think it's so important to sort of make sure that you're in the public eye. You're not sort of like locking yourself in a room and not talking to people. I think you know, a tool that we have now at our fingertips is social media. Stuff like Instagram is just it's an absolutely incredible way for upcoming musicians to sort of share themselves, whether they be a songwriter, sort of like, you know, demonstrating their songs, or if they are a musician sort of playing either on their own or along to stuff. And I think it's so important to try and to do that, you know, follow other musicians, follow session musicians, talk to them and get advice. You know, like I'm on Instagram and Twitter and everything like that. If anyone ever has any questions or anything that they didn't think of tonight and stuff like that, you know, always happy to answer them. And I know that a lot of other sort of session musicians in the UK are the same, because I used to pester them all the time when I was younger as well. So yeah, I just really think it's just, yeah, you just got to be persistent, and yeah, like the hard work will pay off. Yeah. You got to nag these people and network with the musical directors. You know, I think that there's so many more musical directors now than there were 10 years ago. And the musical directors are the people that put the bands together for these people. I think sort of like back in my day, sort of like 10, 11 years ago, it very much relied on an agent to sort of get you the work and be the person that introduced you to people. Whereas now, like social media alone is good enough. And so yeah, just really focus on trying to sort of almost try and build a brand for yourself online, with your socials basically, and talk to people and yeah, record. You don't need all of the videos that I've got on my Instagram that I did in the last lockdown. I recorded with my iPhone, and I think they sound pretty great. You don't need to have like top of the range microphones and stuff in your house. I think people can like have an open enough mind to sort of gauge you as a person and musician just by, it doesn't have to be the best quality, is what I'm saying. So don't let that put you off.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think half of the battle is people just seeing that you're being proactive. You know, if they're flicking through and they see that you've, you know, watched a video on Instagram, you're going to be in the back of their minds if an opportunity kind of comes up. It'll be like, oh yeah, I saw that the other day, you know, and they put you forward. So I guess it's just about being at the forefront in people's minds.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let's get a bit nerdy then. Let's talk gear.
Let's go for it.
So can you give us a rundown of what your touring kit would consist of?
Yeah, sure. So I'm using the last couple of tours I've done with Tudor. I've switched to acrylic shells instead of wood, which is sort of really like given a really loud, punchy sound that we're sort of going for that tour. So I actually use quite small drums. I don't use particularly loud ones. I think sort of when you play, once you go above a certain size, when you're sort of out of the studio, it sort of can often get lost. So my kick drum's only 20 inches. My snare drum is 14 by 5, and it is wood. I do use a wooden DW collectors. My tom's only 12, 14, 16, and yeah, I use Zildjian. I use the K range all round. I use Vater drumsticks. I use the 1A of those, and they are very long. Don't know if anyone's ever done it, but for some reason I like really thick and long drumsticks. About at least an inch longer than your average drumstick. Trying to make this not sound dodgy, everyone. Sorry about that. To everyone that's watching. I don't know why. It sort of feels good for me. And then I'm using Remo drum heads. I use coated Power Stroke 3s on my snares, and then clear ones on all the toms. Again, sort of like, it's quite a thick sort of triple layered skin, because I do hit anyone that's seen me play drums live. I do hit them particularly hard. I'm quite a hard hitter in that respect with Tudor and stuff like that. So and then yeah, I just have I built my own sort of setup to my left hand side with Roland. Instead of having sort of like an SPD SX pad, like not the 9 pads in a small space, I basically built a bigger version of that. I've just had 4 sort of individual pads, and linked it up to a TM6, I think it's called.
Yep.
Quite a new piece of equipment from Roland. Anyone that's interested in sort of introducing like electronics into their playing in an affordable way, a lot of the TM range is really, really great. I got the TM6 because I needed the extra amount of triggers. I needed 6. But often you only need maybe 1 or 2 just for like the occasional hand clap and stuff like that. So, you know, I think for a couple of £100 now, maybe even less, you can buy a couple of triggers and one of those. And I think it's absolutely amazing that a company like Roland have sort of like developed something like that for musicians to be able to do, because it was not that cheap right at the beginning, and it was very difficult and complicated. Whereas now I think they've made it very easy. It's very easy to program. So, like, to the drummers listening, I think it's so important for you to try and invest in sort of familiarising yourself with electronic sort of sample playing, because it literally is in everything now. Like from heavy rock music to, you know, playing with the pop stars. It's so important to sort of educate yourself and practice that, and get comfortable with programming and operating those sort of things live. It's a really, really important thing, I think. And then yeah, that's about it really. My setup's not particularly complicated. I don't have a big fancy anything. Yeah, quite simple in that respect.
Are you just triggering samples then, or do you have a backing track sort of going on in the background as well, or?
Yeah, so I run all of the backing tracks as well. So we use a rack-mounted backing tracks called Jokos. We have 2 of them running at the same time. They're linked essentially. So when I cue it, they both run at the same time. If one of them fails, fortunately it switches to the other one. So yeah, the whole of the Tudor show is to backing track. A lot of people think that, you know, if you're playing along to a backing track, it's because you're cheating, and like there's lots of stuff going on. With the Tudor one, it's actually very minimal. There's just like, you know, there's a few little percussion bits in there, and, you know, sort of like doubling up of keyboards here and there. But the main reason for it is that it sort of the backing track translates into time code for the lights. So when you're on tour and you see the shows with the big fancy screens behind and all the lights and stuff like that going in time, that's because it's actually electronically linked, you know, via metronome to to the to all the backing tracks basically, and that's the main reason why we have the whole show to a backing track.
Fantastic. And it gets quite logistically complex as well if something goes down, doesn't it? So, you know, as a drummer, there's quite a lot of responsibility there as well.
Oh yeah, no, with tutor, obviously I'm running the backing tracks, I'm curing the electronics, and I'm playing the drums. So I'm basically sort of like juggling three things at the same time. Yeah. I do look a bit like a crazy octopus when I'm playing drums anyway. So yeah, no, there's lots to think about, and again, it's more and more common these days that drummers are running that sort of thing live. So that's why I say, you know, the more practice you can get, you know, when you're studying with electronics and familiarising yourself with it, it will only do you the world of good for when you get out there and start working professionally.
Yeah, agree. So we've got in the chat. So kind of going on from gear, they've asked at the beginning of your career, how do you manage to get endorsements for your and your equipment? So how does that process work?
Yeah, good question. Again, I think a lot of the things that I think people, again, they presume once you get a big gig or once you get famous or whatever, that these music companies throw equipment at you, whereas it's really not the case anymore. I think it's very much, again, it's just building a relationship with these companies. Again, now more so than ever, like with the social media, you can reach out to the people so much easier, whereas before you had to sort of like, you had to find the emails and stuff like that, but now you can tag the people. So every single time you're uploading a video or anything like that, like tag the companies that you're working with and that you love, because they love to see it, and they really do pay attention to it now, you know. And I think it's important, and just reach out to them. Like if you're starting out and you love Zildjian cymbals, you know, tag them and stuff, drop them a message, be like, you know, I'm studying in college, I absolutely love your products, you know, let's make sure we keep in touch. I'm aiming to, you know, to go on to do professional work, and I'd love to work together in the future. And that's sort of what I did. I reached, at that time, the social media wasn't really about, so I pestered people that, you know, the drum tutors that I knew that had the contacts to the email addresses, and I sent these people emails, and you know, they were very polite, sent it back, said, oh, it's great to hear, and you know, glad that you love the stuff. And I always sent them videos and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just very much, I think people need to think of endorsements as building relationships with people. They're not really interested in just lobbing you a load of free gear and just being like, yeah, cool, I play that. They like, especially today, like companies like DW and Zildjian and Vater and Remo, they're like, the people that are endorsed with them are considered like them, like family. You know, they hold like annual like meetings and dinners all around the world for everyone, and it's an amazing community to be involved in. And yeah, it's just about that. So I just reach out to them, tell them what you're doing, talk to them. At the end of the day, it is real people at the end of the phone and on these social accounts. And now's an amazing time to be able to do that. And again, it's just all back to that word that I said at the beginning was networking, and it's such an important word, and it goes throughout everything in the music industry, I think. So that would be my advice, and what I did is talk to them, reach out, tell them what you're doing. If you send them an email being like, you know, chuck me a load of free shit, mate, I've got a gig, they're probably not gonna like that. They will always, you know, I think you should approach it more along the lines that, you know, you want to work with them, you want to be part of the family. What can we do? Usually these days it'll probably start off with being offered a decent artist discount. It's very difficult to get things like sort of free these days unless you are sort of, you know, like very much in the public eye, just because like times are just a bit tougher. But you know, if you want to be part of the family, it's always worth reaching out to them. Yeah,
and I think that's a really important point as well, because I think a lot of people miss the mark on the fact that it's a two-way street. You know.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
You are out there advertising their equipment to your fan base, and in return you get the support that you kind of need. You're on the road. And I think you're right, it's about building those relationships, because I mean, personally, some of the gear that I play, you know, part of the decision in that was how good the artist liaison was, and you know, whether I like that person, and if anything went wrong, could I rely on them to sort of help support me, and
exactly,
vice versa, if they want to know that I'm out there spreading sort of positive stuff about the company. And it's trust at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And it never stops, you know. I'm always in contact with my endorsements, and I never won't be. And it's so important. Again, like once you've got the free bit of gear, or you've got the the discount, and then you just forget about them, and you don't tag them in anything, you don't keep in touch with them. Again, they don't forget that sort of thing, and they won't, yeah, it's really important. It is a relationship, and I think how you put it's really good. It's a two-way street. It's really important to think of it as a relationship rather than a you're just giving me free equipment, cheers mate. Do you know what I mean? So
absolutely. So there's a question in the chat here that says, who are your musical inspirations from the beginning to now?
Oh wow. From a drumming perspective, I'm a massive Jeff Porcaro fan. I'm very much a like a groove-based drummer. Like I said before, I'm focused about playing the drums rather than sort of like the flashy stuff. I love Simon Phillips as well. Like my family were big Toto fans back in the day, so I listened to a lot of those guys and got a lot of inspiration from them. I've got a huge amount of respect for the technical players like Tony Royster Jr. that have the ability to tone it down when they need to. And I've got so much respect for guys like that because I don't think there's that many of them. Tony Royster is obviously like arguably one of the most technically gifted drummers in the world. But, if he's playing for Rita Ora or Katy Perry, he just absolutely just nails the groove down and just doesn't piss about basically. And, obviously those artists, they know his talent, so they give him like times in the set to show his technical ability, but the rest of the gig he's just nailing it down and playing what he needs to do. And I think it's amazing to sort of to have musicians like that have that the control to hold that back. And so I've got a lot of respect for him as well. And I'd say that those three are sort of like big musical inspirations to me. And then I'm a massive Stevie Wonder fan, because I don't know if many of you know, but most of the stuff that he's played is he records the drums for. So he's actually he's a very talented drummer as well. Again, very groove based and very sort of like, if he's playing the groove, it's him, very much like Jeff Porcaro. And I like drummers like that. I like drummers that if you mute everything and you just hear the beat, that who's playing. And I think it's so rare to sort of get your musical personality across as a drummer these days. And those sort of guys really nail and sort of manage to do that. So they would be my big inspirations, I'd say.
I think that's a good point, because if you think old school like Bonham and stuff, you hear the triplets, it's him, and
exactly,
and like having your little kind of trademark. And if you're a vocalist, you've got certain inflections in your voice, and you're right, it's kind of harder to sort of cut through with that as a drummer. And it's really important to have that little uniqueness in a market like this that is kind of saturated with a lot of the same genres and a lot of the same players.
Exactly, and that's sort of going back to what I was saying about when I was starting out as a drummer and practicing. I was never a drummer. I didn't want to read the instruction books and watch the sort of the sort of Bob Standard like instructional videos, because I think it just makes you come out like a bit of a robot. And whereas if you're playing along to music, you won't even know you're doing it, but you'll be adding your own sort of personality to it. And it's so important to be able to do that, because people will hear it. There's not a single person in the world that hits the drum the same way. Everybody hits it slightly differently, because you're playing a different drum, you've got a different head on it, you're hitting it in a slightly different place, you've got different sticks, and it's all about building that personality. I think trying to get that across, I think it's really important to work on that. That's so much more important to me than being able to do a 6-stroke roll at 240 BPM. So.
Thomas Lang might disagree with you there, though.
Yeah, I know he would, but he got fired from the Sugar Babes. So I do love Thomas though. He's a very nice guy. Sorry, I wasn't slagging him off, but you know what I mean.
I've got his Creative Control DVD, and I remember going to my first ever drum show and as a super fan, and running up to him and asking for him to sign it for me. Still got it in the other bedroom.
Oh, bless you. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch players like that. It's absolutely crazy, but it's not something that I enjoy watching it, but it doesn't inspire me to want to go and pick up my sticks. Yeah.
Makes me want to put them down forever and just go and cry.
Yes, it makes me just want to crawl into a hole and go and give up, basically. And it's not about that. Professional drumming's not that. That's not what it's about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a question in here about your favourite track to practice to. So do you kind of have like a practice routine at all?
One of my favourite things to do, and I still do it, and I did it, like I said, when I had my drums set up in the club here throughout the first lockdown, is on my phone. I've got an absolute vast array of music, from you know, super pop stuff to musicals to really heavy metal, and I love just hitting the shuffle button, pushing play, and then just jamming out for an hour, you know, and that's sort of what I love to do, and that's how I like to practice, because it, you know, it keeps you on your toes. I don't know what track's coming next, you've got to jump straight into it, and yeah, it just keeps you feeling alive as a musician, really. And it's something that all of us can do at home. If you don't have a drum kit at home, stuff like that, you know, you can play along on your bed if you need to. But that's what I've always done. I've always just push the shuffle button, and it's always worked for me. I've never sort of had a specific like track or sort of genre of music that I like to sort of play along to. I've always just tried to keep it sort of varied.
There's never been a time where you've kind of sat and gone through all the rudiments on your practice pad or any of that stuff?
I know it's absolutely terrible for me to say, but no, I've never been a drummer that's done that. It stops at a paradiddle for me. As much as I fully appreciate it and stuff like that, and I'm not saying to not do that, but for me, it's not something that I've ever had to properly use in my career, and has been an advantage, basically. I've found it's been a lot better for me to be able to go in the room and go, yeah, I can do a samba, or yeah, no, I can play that genre of music. That's always been a lot more beneficial to me than being able to do rudiments, if that makes sense. So
yeah, and I guess you've taken all that on board anyway when you're playing along to, you know, different tunes. You're getting that kind of diverse background of different styles, and they're kind of going in like without you even having to sit there and drill a load of paradiddles anyway. You know, you're still sort of learning all of those rudiments in the background. Exactly
that. That's exactly how I've always looked at that. So practice your rudiments, kids. No, joke.
Stop at paradiddles.
Yeah, just the paradiddles. Yeah.
So got another question on here. So what do you think you'll be doing in 10 years time?
In 10 years time?
Put your Mystic hat on.
Oh, I mean, I've been touring for 11 years now, and it's bloody hard work. It is hard work. So I guess I would like to be in a position where I can be selective as to what sort of gigs I accept to do, because I'm going to be a bit older and hopefully settle down and have a family and stuff like that, which is what I sort of had in mind when it came to opening the side businesses, was to sort of have that, you know, that consistent sort of revenue stream coming in when if I did want to take a year off or something like that. So yeah, in 10 years time, I hope that I can sort of accept you know, maybe a tour a year or something like that for a couple of months maybe, just because, you know, it's in being a musician, it's in your blood, it's never going to go anywhere, but maybe not have to sort of like rely on it for a financial income. I can sort of be more selective, because I personally, you know, I absolutely love jumping on and doing a pub gig, and, you know, I love sort of headlining a festival. They're both sort of give me a similar sort of buzz, just getting behind and playing music, really. So
absolutely, that's fab. Okay, so I guess we're starting to round it up a bit now. So if anyone's got any last questions, please do pop them in the chat. But I mean, if we're talking beyond lockdown, what's kind of next for Tudor? Like, what did you kind of have in the pipe work before all of this sort of hit?
Oh, it's really annoying. We had such an incredible year booked this year, from, you know, like the biggest sort of like festival slots we've ever had. I think we were booked sort of like second to headline main stage at Reading, which is sort of like was like a massive sort of thing for us as a band, which was obviously really disappointing. We had loads of really great tours sorted out, but I mean, the management have been really great in the respect that they've been working with the promoters and everybody to sort of reschedule everything. So the diary is looking good for next year. So hopefully we just sort of pretend this year didn't happen, and next year we get to sort of do all those exciting shows and get to see everybody's faces again in the gigs.
Fantastic. And is there anything still on the bucket list that you really want to kind of tick off? Anything that you haven't yet achieved?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and one of the big things that I've never done and really want to do is I want to be playing drums for the band that does the Super Bowl halftime show.
Sure, yeah.
That's the big thing. So within 10 years, I'll make sure that happens. That's sort of like the one thing left that I really want to do.
It's kind of start at the top, like dream big.
Exactly, yeah. So that's sort of, I mean, like I said, I've been fortunate enough to have been on an absolutely mental journey with Tudor. been lucky enough to play pretty much all the festivals I've ever wanted to play, all the venues I've ever wanted to play, and it's been absolutely incredible. So yeah, that's one of the big ones that's left to tick. So hopefully that happens.
Do you have a favourite memory or like a favourite gig or venue that you've played that really kind of sticks in your mind?
I mean, there is so many. There's been so many incredible moments, but one of the funniest moments that I remember was when we played an outdoor amphitheatre in France. I cannot remember where it was or what it was called because I couldn't pronounce it, and I still wouldn't be able to pronounce it. But basically, it was literally like an old like proper amphitheatre and all stone. And the ticket to get into the gig was a pillow. So they posted everybody a pillow because obviously it was all stone, so you had to sit on the pillows.
Right.
And the tradition of this particular venue was in this town, if you enjoyed the gig, you throw the pillows at the stage at the end. But what we didn't think about was the fact that at the end of our gig, it was pissing with rain. Therefore, pillows and rain, they therefore become quite heavy objects being fired at you. And when you're a drummer and can't move out of the way, it's quite terrifying to have these somewhat like rocks being thrown at your head. So that was definitely one of my favorite memories of like, this is absolutely bizarre. And all of us were covered in bruises and cuts, and my drum kit got absolutely destroyed. The amps got destroyed, but you know, we walked away from it and went, that was awesome. That was so fun and so unique. Like, what a cool idea. So that's probably up there.
If that was in this country, health and safety would go mental.
Nah, yes, that just wouldn't happen. Like, health and safety did not exist at this concert. The catering backstage, I shit you not, was shark. I'm not joking. They had a shark, and they had just the head, and then the rest of it had obviously been used to cook the catering. I was like, I think I'll stick to the bread.
Imagine
but thank you.
As well, you're just like,
Oh my god, yeah, no. I mean, I don't know if you've toured France much at all, but being a vegetarian doesn't really exist in catering back there. It's quite difficult. Germany and France, very difficult to be vegetarian.
Yeah, and people don't kind of warn you for this. If you have any sort of dietary requirements or anything, and especially if you go to like Bavaria or play anywhere in kind of, you know, the depths of Germany, you know you're getting meat with a side of meat for your dinner.
Exactly, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Even when you get to a level like that, you're fortunate enough to sort of request your dietary requirements and what you want. They don't read it.
Yeah.
They don't get. You're still getting meat, so yeah.
That's a really good question, actually. What's on your rider?
On our rider, do you know what? The rider's actually really boring. But like I know, I wish I could lie and say that it's not particularly exciting. But I always my three items that I always put on it are Barocca, because I love a Barocca on tour, keeps me going. Chocolate milk and chewing gum. They are my three things. And then other than that, what's that? Sorry.
You ever put a Barocca in the chocolate milk just to see what happens?
I have not ever done that, and I might try that when I get home, and I'll let you know. That sounds absolutely awful, but I'm really intrigued to see what happens now. But yeah, other than that, it's just sort of like spreads of usual stuff to make sandwiches. We had a phase where we put socks on the rider because we'd always run out of socks. Quite a good idea. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, when we were a bit younger, it was, you know, we used to put stupid stuff on there, but it was very rare that it ever turned up.
Yeah. No diva requests. No like 2 chihuahuas or anything on there. Then
no red M&Ms only. None of that, unfortunately.
Awesome. So last question in here. So we've got, do you think it is important to be a decent percussionist as well as a kit player? Would it make you more employable?
I mean, I don't. That's quite a difficult question, to be honest. I've never really thought about that, but I guess it can't hurt, especially when it comes. If you want to be a session musician in the studio, I can imagine it being incredibly beneficial, because that means they wouldn't have to hire somebody else. So yeah, I guess it is a good thing to be able to play percussion. I've always been able to play sort of like basic percussion. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but I could definitely record most albums sort of like percussion as well. So yeah, always a good skill to have. And obviously it depends who you're playing for. If you're playing for like more acoustic acts, I'd definitely say that it would be beneficial to be able to, be able to use shakers and stuff like that properly. It's important because so many people can't play a shaker properly, and it's quite hard to watch. So yeah, definitely good question. and I think it's definitely worth putting in the time, sort of learning the basics, basically, because you never know when you need it. Yeah. And like you said, if anyone just, you know, if they surprisingly go, right, well, we need to record this now, and you can, it can only be a positive thing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, personally, for me, it's definitely made me more employable, because even though I'm technically kit is my first instrument, when I started working with Blossoms, I was actually a drum tech for Joe.
Yeah.
We wanted to expand their live show and add, you know, a whole big percussion rig, bongos, conga, sort of samples and things in from it, and have this sort of pretty massive live show. And I was lucky that I could kind of play percussion as well, and I was like, yeah, I can do that, and kind of got the gig from there. So I think that for me definitely was like, you know, a green light on that.
That's
side.
awesome. No, that's awesome. That's good. I'm really looking forward to the live concert that you guys are doing. Actually, I'm definitely going to tune into that. Let everybody know when it is, so that we can all tune in.
It's oh god, I can't remember the date. It's I think it's the 3rd or 4th of December, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's going to be really strange, because we're sorry, just to give some context, we're just talking about a virtual reality gig that Blossoms are doing at Brixton Academy, that you can all kind of tune in from home and watch, and it's going to be filmed in a round, so they're going to have these like 360 cameras in the middle, and you kind of all are around the cameras, so wherever you are at home you can kind of move your screen and watch anyone in the band, which is going to be a bit strange as well, because like you said before, like, you know, not having an audience is going to be like, it's going to wig me out. It's going to feel like
it's going to be weird. Yeah,
you can't see them.
You need to get some pre-recorded like you know, comedy claps for the end of each song. Get them to put it through your ears at the end, make it feel a bit more normal.
Who's going to throw like bottles of pee at us and stuff like that?
I know, yeah, I know. Well,
experience.
If you need someone, I love Brixton Academy. I'll stand on the balcony with a water pistol, you know.
Oh, would you?
Yeah, just let us know. We'll come down.
Wouldn't even have to pay you, would I?
No, that'd be great.
Amazing. Any last questions? Do you want to pop them in the chat or no? Oh, hello.
Welcome back.
Jeannie.
I just thought I'll tune in now as well.
It's about to go downhill there, isn't it? Talking about bottles of
bottles of piss. He's like, I'm stepping in.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure everyone who was tuning in was really enjoying it as well. I mean, we had so many questions. So yeah, thank you so much to both of you. It was a pleasure to have you, and yeah, I think everyone learned a lot.
And thanks so much for inviting me and having me. It's been really great to have a chat. And like I said before earlier on, if anyone sort of has any questions that they think of later on, just shoot me a message on. Usually Instagram's usually the best form to get hold of me, and I will always make sure I go through and sort of answer them anytime. Just hit me up.
Amazing.
Take him up on it. Go and bombard him.
Yeah.
Do you want to put your Instagram handle into the chat bar, or shall I do that?
Yeah, I don't know where the chat bar is.
Okay, yeah, true.
Because I'm on my phone, I don't think it appears.
The only thing is, if you tell me what it is, then I'll put it in there.
Yeah, I've got to find out what it is.
Okay, there we go.
1 second. I do remember. I just want to double check. Yeah, no, I thought it was. It's literally Ben Thompson Drums. It's at Ben Thompson Drums. BURMS THOMP. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, there we go. Great. Colette, do you want to add yours as well? Just so people can... Brilliant. Great. Amazing.
There we go.
So, yeah, my task for everyone who's tuned in is to check them out and leave a follow.
Oh, exactly. Great. Well, thanks again for having us. It's been great fun.
Yeah,
thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Yeah. Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.
Bye.